incredibly international group of people, which could have been expanded had one of our colleagues not been stuck on a train
Yeah.
somewhere coming from Cambridge. He's now pinkies up, sipping tea. But this would have been truly an intercontinental meeting. I myself, bienvenidos a la ciudad de Carmen para el Carmen in Mexico. I'm knee deep in resort living currently, but we got what Megan, you're in Whitefish, Montana,
I am.
and sunny San Diego is where Dr. Laura is calling in from, and yeah, we're everywhere, all over the place.
Good. If anyone wants to share where they're from, we'd love to know while we wait just a few more minutes for everybody to get here. Put in the chat maybe where you're from and what your current position is. We'd love to know a little bit about you. Get started. Well, we're the IXR team. We're so excited to be here. So honored that you're spending your summer from California, right, Janet? Awesome. Lucy from Mexico, too. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Marwa, you are a familiar face. Awesome, Stephen. So excited. I went to UC Santa Barbara, so I am a UC Santa Barbara girl. Are you north of that? Are you in north of Santa Barbara? Oh, I don't know if it'll let you unmute Stephen right now as we get started, but I'm excited that you're Central California and Fresno. Awesome. I have a dear friend who lives in Fresno too. Wonderful school systems in Fresno. A lot of great, wonderful, high-performing schools. Just so much diversity in your school system in Fresno. I really love the culture that you have out there for excellence. It's really a wonderful, wonderful region for TK through 12 education. Oh, Tulare, that's awesome. Thank you for joining us. Oh, we are Marwa. Marwa's from Lebanon. She's just such essential and wonderful, always present in so many of our meetings. Marwa, thank you for being here and spending time with us today. Wait, one more minute and then we'll get started. Cam, could you put in the chat the link to our handout today? So those that are joining us will be able to access that. You should have received an email with it as well, but we'll put it in our link. So if those of you who haven't had a chance to see it yet or did not receive the email or just got busy and forgot to download it, I will put it in the chat here for you. So you have a nice takeaway. Awesome. All right, Tori, let's do this.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first of four opportunities to get hands-on and put our fingers into the mix, so to speak, when it comes to actually implementing AI policy. We all have, or at least starting to begin to get to the point where we have these AI policies, but how do they work? How do you take it from policy to put it into practical play? And if you haven't already opened the PDF that we've put into the chat area or have emailed, go ahead and take a second and do that now. I have to admit these are beautiful documents. I didn't make them myself, but I do appreciate the aesthetic value of a nicely prepared document. So I understand that in this document you won't be filling out everything. This is not necessarily a point to completion. The goal here is to ensure that we can start thinking about how to take the words of a policy and then translate that into something that's more actionable. And before we move any way further, let me introduce the folks who are in the room right now. I'm Dr. Juan Semple, Academic Program Director at National University and author of National University's RAISE 5 AI Implementation Framework. And also with us is co-CEO and co-founder of IXR is Megan Freeman, who we mentioned coming from the God's country out there in Montana, and Dr. Laura Spencer, who is a legend in the ed tech advocate community. Thank you for you guys being here. We're missing our other co-founder, Colin Cooper, who is really our business mind behind the implementation of AI and the implementation of the meaning and the business elements, because the marriage between the education and preparing for business is, I think, a lot of what people are missing the step on and kind of falling down when it comes to really preparing people into the working space. And And Mr. Cooper is maybe one of the world's most influential voices when it comes to that topic. So as we're moving forward here, let's take a look and see how it is that we can actually move into a space where the policies begin to make sense.
Next slide, Kim.
All right, so thank you for that intro, Dr. Temple. I just want to make you a promise today. We're going to leave you with one practical move, right? One assignment. Our goal here today is not to add 20 more things to your plate, but it's to provide clarity on what you are doing so that when you walk out of here today, you are clear in where you need to go with your AI policy so that it resonates with the work that you do. So if you have your hand out, I would like you to please find page 2. You don't need to write anything yet, but I want you to know where it is, and that's where we're going to kick off our work.
Awesome.
And you can switch slides and, oh, go ahead.
Cam, can you make the link publicly accessible? It looks like someone was having an accessibility issue getting the link downloaded. So can you make sure it's shared with anybody? Thank you. Sorry, Laura?
No, I was going to say next slide. Tori, back to you.
All right. Well, this is the faces that meet the titles and the folks who are kind of moving forward into this space. And as we've tried and aimed to put together a working, I should say, a working craft in the sense of this brand new AI space to put together something that actually does some of the things we're challenged with currently. And that's trying to assess to make sure that the kids are actually doing thinking. Students are actually producing something that is of importance. And so there's on the left there is Colin Cooper, who I mentioned earlier, Megan Freeman, myself, and Dr. Laura Spencer. And so these are the minds behind the workshop currently as we're going to be going through this 4-part series. And as we move through this, let's take a look at more succinctly the handout that's in front of us.
Next slide, please.
So when let's take a look, and a lot of times I think we end up into this space and we know we have an issue, we have a problem, we don't really think about what it is exactly. So let's think for a minute and try to put together a list of things that are pressuring the school or the organization or the district that you're in currently right now. And we're going to do something that we're going to call chat waterfall. So inside the chat right now, what I'd like you to do is to come up with a word or phrase that identifies the kind of pressure that AI is putting on the students or the staff or the district leadership. And it might be something like integrity, teacher trust, parent questions, productivity, student cognition or student thinking, workloads. Take a second and don't hit your return yet. The waterfall part is the cool part. That's where everybody dumps it into the chat at the same time. So and then we're gonna analyze what these factors might be in your world because we want you to walk away with this having pertinence to the world that you live in. So take a second in the chat, make a list of words and phrases. Don't hit send yet. I can tell you right now, from a university standpoint at National, this is a big question, and the student cognition force that pressure vector is a very big deal right now. Okay. All right. So we've had a second to kind of think about this. So go ahead and hit enter, and let's see what you're thinking. The force for implementation. And I left K-12 right before AI kind of became a thing, and I'm curious just to see what kind of pressure that K-12 is under right now to do something with AI. Are they just keeping their heads above water? Is this just to be the police to make sure that it doesn't get used? Is that the major force that's being applied right now in K-12 is just sort of a survival tactic? Just make sure that we have the immunization against the evil AI that comes in and steals the working cognition of the student.
It is truly an issue in K-12, and I'm glad that you threw implementation out there, Steve. And we're gonna talk through that a little bit more today. That is the work that we are here to do. So what we're going to talk about today is the fact that the policy alone isn't really what is going to carry the problem, right? Like there's legal pieces, we know there's ethical pieces, but we are here to focus also on the human piece. That's what's critical to every conversation we have today. Yes, instruction is important and the operation of this is important, but it's all grounded in the fact that we are humans living in this AI environment right now. So we're not going to solve every AI problem today. If we could, we would be making billions of dollars. But what we are here to do is just share with you one leadership move that can make this easier as you move forward. So if you can go ahead and switch slides, please, Cam. And then I'm going to switch it over to Megan.
Yeah, this is the reality, right? We're looking at AI policies or AI is here. It's not something that can be put in back in the box. And policies are being handed to us, or we're in the middle of drafting them in a system that's already dealing with so much. And as a leader, there's so many times I was expected to have the answer and carry it all. Implementation of policy cannot be another thing that's added to an already busy system. So when you're looking at a large policy with especially AI policies, which often are full of legalese, there tends to be this moment as a leader when you freeze. In my 25 years in education, I have been handed many a policy, and a policy is only as good as its implementation. So a lot of our policies, when they're large and overwhelming, a good intentioned administrator will read them, become overwhelmed, and they sit on the shelf. And until there is pressure on the system for the policy to become implemented and have accountability, nothing really happens with the policy and the students aren't impacted. So today, we need to make sure that we really pay attention to these policies. We know you are so busy, but how can we take something that is important as AI policy that's meant to protect the teacher, the system, and the student, and bring it down to a bite-sized reality where you can implement it with fidelity? That's the lens
That's
I
a
want to hold
really
today.
it's the fidelity part, and it's the actionability. What are the words? What are the phrases? How do I broach the subject? Because policies stay in a very unique place, and the language is oftentimes foreign to the classroom, or foreign to the conversation that occurs between students and teachers. And so, Laura, let's check out was it page 3?
Yeah, so if you can click on the next slide, Cam, we're going to look at page 3 in the handbook. This is the policy to practice audit. So some of you have an AI policy, and that's great. And then some of you don't, and that's great too. So wherever you are, it's okay. But what I'd like you to do is if you do have a policy, we're going to start in square one. And I don't know if you have it in front of you, and that's okay if you don't. But what I'd like you to do is in that first box where it says what the policy says, is just pull out a key phrase that you might remember, like, oh, it says that students have to ask permission before they can use AI or something like that. And if you don't have a policy yet, that's okay as well. You can write down what you think one sentence is that your policy should say. So go ahead and jot that down. Again, it doesn't matter if you have one or not. We're here wherever you are. But really what we're talking about right now is that policy is just the promise, right? We write the policy, but a lot of times we put it in a binder, we put it on a shelf. And what we're going to focus more on today is the implementation. So let me just give you 30 seconds. You could just jot something down on your workbook, or if you're like me, you probably have some Post-its sitting around and you can write it down on those as well. All right, you can go ahead and click the next. I'm the worst timekeeper. Go ahead and click on the next slide, Cam. Actually, I had to put a little timer up. So go ahead and click. Again, I said this before, but it doesn't matter which path you're on. What's important is that you're in this room right now having the important conversation. What I would like you to do, though, is I'd like you to put in the chat, are you path A? In other words, I have a policy and I just need to know how to strengthen it, how to use it, how to make sure that it keeps the humanity. Or are you path B, which is we don't have one yet. We're at the starting line, so we're going to come in fresh with new ideas. So go ahead and put that in the chat for us. All right. Janet's on her way with the policy. Perfect. All right, Stephen, they've already done some training. That's awesome. Okay, next slide. So there are three things that we want to talk about here, right? Protect, require, and prove. So as you look at those next three questions in the handout, when you think about protect, what value or risk is this protecting? In other words, when we have this policy, what are we really trying to protect here? And then when we look at require, what should students or teachers actually do? And for prove, what evidence would show this is happening? And I'm going to give you a hint. In most policies, that prove is the piece that's missing. And that's okay. We're here to work on that. But again, take a moment and I want you to think about the policy that you have, since most of you have a policy, and go ahead and put down, what is your policy trying to protect? What is it trying to require? And if you have it, what evidence would show that that's happening? And if you don't have one yet, you can write down what you think should be there. And I'll give you just about a minute. Again, this is just rough. You just sketch down some ideas. Nobody's grading you on grammar or completion of thought.
It's sort of a side note. As someone who probably broke a lot of policies in my K-12 career, to be on a side where you're thinking about what does a policy do? What is the point of this? And I looked at it in a lot of ways as how does it inconvenience my ability to do the job the way I want it to do? But the idea that it's designed to protect something and what it requires, and then to actually show some proof that the policy itself is actually changing behaviors. I think this is a really interesting way to break down sort of policy anatomy. And it's not something I spent a lot of time thinking about when I was in K-12. You have daily issues and problems that you're dealing with, and you don't really think about the inner construct of the meaning of a policy. Like, I think this is a really interesting point to be made.
And I also feel like, Tori, that it's what the prove section of this, as Laura spoke about, is what the leaders need to pay attention to the most. When we're very, very busy, we're really good at understanding the policy, we're really good at the requirements, and we could check the box.
Mm-hmm.
But where we often miss is the accountability piece. So now that we've done the training, we know what's required of each stakeholder, but we often forget the part of the loop of proving it. And that's where it becomes very, people get anxious. Leaders are like, how do I do this appropriately? That's where the portion of any type of policy becomes a little bit anxiety ridden for a leader. Well, how do I prove this? I have so many other things to prove. So that's what we're here to talk about today, how we can make this large
I think that's a very
AI.
interesting point too. The proving part, because it's almost like if they have anxiety over having to prove it, does that oftentimes lead to just blowing it aside and going, well, we'll get to it, and then it never actually shows up or gets done.
I think the pressures of the job, that's real no matter who you are or what you do. In the TK through 12 environment, it's the amount of work that is going on for some leaders just to turn the lights on and make sure kids are safe.
It's bonkers. Yeah.
Is a lot. So what happens when you have large and very important policies, and we're talking about AI, student safety, teacher safety. Look what happened with Canvas, with security and IT safety, right? We're dealing with this on many, many fronts. So it is important that while we recognize and honor the hefty lift that our leaders are pulling in the TK through 12 public education, private education environment, even secondary higher education, the importance of this proving what is happening and how people are implementing the policy is so important. And the fact is that Laura's going to take us through this, but if you have one, so we've been talking, but we've been trying to fill the space here while you were thinking about your own proof point. If you have one, we'd love to see it. Can you drop it in the chat?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think even I would have a tough, really tough time trying to go, how do I prove it?
What's that bridge, right? So that's that connecting
exactly.
piece.
How do you know the policy is doing what it's supposed to do? And then how would you share that with other people?
Awesome. Stephen trains hundreds of educators through the Homegrown Leadership Academy. Awesome. Proving it, training completion records. Awesome. annual policy review, living document, dated revisions, board reportable metrics. Awesome. Also, looking at how you can bridge it to actual students. So my question would be, so can we actually bring this down to the student level as well?
And I think that's the implementation level. That's the most meaningful level, but I think it's also the one that doesn't get a lot of attention.
That's because we focus mainly on detection. So Cam, if you can go ahead and flip us to the next slide. I do want to call that out, kind of looking through these chat pieces. What happens in most of these policies truly is detection, right? Like we're all doing. You went through this course, you learned the pros and cons of AI, maybe you signed a document that you're not going to use it. Canvas has a little checkbox saying, I promise this is my work. I didn't use something else to create this, right? That's detection. And it feels attractive because it promises certainty. But the problem is it's pulling you away from the bigger question, the instructional question. The reason that we're in school is what learning can the student still show? I've worked so hard with my teachers to tell them, you're not the AI police. I don't need you to go and insert every document a student does into a tool to see if they typed every letter, if they did some erasing, if they copy and pasted huge paragraphs. That's not going to tell you the bigger picture. The bigger picture is, can the student show learning? And that's what we're talking about here in this shift is how can we move away from just detection and protecting from the beast that is AI and moving us over to where we redirect it towards learning evidence. So that's what we're going to focus on. And if you can go ahead and flip to the next slide. So when we focus on detection, what we're doing is we're just asking who wrote this, right? Did you write this? Did Claude write this? Did my buddy Chatty G write this? But learning visibility is about asking that stronger question. Can the student explain? Can the student defend? Can the student revise? Can they transfer? Can they apply what they know? Do they even understand the words that they submitted in this assignment? That's the telltale for me is I'm like, do you even know what this word means? And that question, though, that's safer for students, but it's also more useful for teachers and more aligned to the work that schools are supposed to protect. We can use AI for many things. I use AI every single day. Nobody questions whether I know what I'm doing because I can explain, I can rationalize, I can have this conversation with you right now. That's the proof in the pudding that the learning is actually happening. That's what we're going to be focusing on today. So go ahead and switch slides for me one more time. Where are you? Are you on slide 11? Yeah. So I want to look at the simple student response. So this is something that's turned into classes all the time. I see teachers getting these and they go ahead and give it a grade. And I just want you to notice it. I don't want you to judge it. But I'm going to ask you to look at 3 different things. And the first one is what is actually visible? Okay, when you look at this, again, we're not judging, we're not bringing in what might be, but what is actually visible? We might see completion in this. We might even see some structure in how it's written, and it might look like a correct looking answer. But there's still some unclear elements here because we might not see source judgment. We don't know where the student got this information from and if they've, questioned that judgment. We might not see revision. Is this the final piece that the student wrote? Is this the first thing that they wrote? Did they go back and forth with this idea? And we might not see where a student might have changed their thinking. Maybe the first draft was that machines make production slower, right? So we don't see. And that's what we're talking about in this session. Yes, a finished answer may tell us something, but it doesn't tell us everything. Next slide.
What I find interesting about this is that when you look at it too, and the university is very much stuck on the detection part. We are stuck on the detection that says, I can notice and I can find and I can pinpoint where AI was used. And the interesting thing about it is that most of the instructors are really good. As you can train AI with frequency and repetition of exposure, you can also train humans that way pretty well. And I got to tell you that some of these people are amazing at detecting AI. However, and I think this is an important point, and a solid point made that this is not really about detection. This is about the expression of being able to cognate, the thinking part, the part that, what did we do? What did the student do with the information? But what was interesting, and this came from the legal department in National, that there is no AI, there is no person that has an established ability to detect without fail the use of AI in a document. There is no legal precedent for this. So if students or teachers are like, oh, they 100% used AI for this, it's a judgment call. And at the university level, that brings in a very different conversation when you start dealing with lots of money being paid for tuition. Then at the K-12 setting, that also invites lots of conversations from parents. And I think that the point of the teacher asking the further questions, or the assignments being designed in a way that forces revision or forces thinking, or a checkpoint or a dot to dot to dot transition to making things different along the way to show the thinking. Because if you just boil it down to detection, you look at this evidence and you go, well, did they or didn't they? That's a case episode. That's the next season of CSI AI.
I also think those conversations are happening all the
More
time.
of a preposition for a show than it does for what school is supposed to be doing, and that's really the assessing the progress of the learning.
And it's frustrating for a teacher,
absolutely.
right? Making sure that I spoke to a principal yesterday who had a training with their staff, and they put 4 different essays in front of the staff, and the staff was tasked to try to figure out which ones were written by humans and which ones were written by AI. And he said 30% of the people got it correct.
Yeah.
And so the challenge can't be that we as humans, and so that's where the policy is there to protect, but this implementation piece, looking at how is this affecting children? How is this affecting teachers? If our goal as an institution is to learn, making sure we're protecting this thinking is the point. So Laura, I'm going to send it back to you.
And I think we just covered this as well, right? We're not saying that we don't care about students cheating. That's not it at all, right? But what we're saying is that the evidence of thinking is where we need to be aligned. If you have that piece, that's the implementation. Everything starts to flow around it. And it was put in the chat. Somebody said, talking about doing like oral defense or live labs, and which are fabulous and they're great. We can't always do them, right? It becomes this huge beast to try and do that every day. But what are the little moves we can make? What is something a teacher can tweak in an assignment to value the thinking and see what students are doing? So if you go ahead and move to the next slide, what we're going to do is I want you to look at page 5 in your handbook, and this is called the evidence test. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take that idea I shared with you earlier when you look at an assignment, and I want you to think about the visibility, right? So what shows in that work? What does it clearly show without question, without judgment, without bringing in what you might know? What does it show? And then what do we assume? So what are we maybe hoping is true? I'm hoping that the student read the essay that I gave them to read before this assignment, right? And I'm assuming that they went and did the work, but we don't know for sure. And then missing means the evidence is just not there. So when you think about that work that we talked about that I showed you earlier, just take a second to think about, especially that last piece, that missing piece. What thinking we need to see, what's not there.
Yeah, I think this is a very important segment, because this process gives process to the evaluation of the student's work, or anybody's work, really. And I think we have a tendency to fall back on, and I love one of the comments that was made earlier about if we fall back on detection, then we're losing the arms race. And that's a very, very clever way of putting it, because this is kind of a race. It's sort of a race to be able to find the path, the cenote, the underground moving liquid of plausibility and application that AI is supposed to have in the process of education. And we're not there yet. But I like this. I like the steps involved with how to think about it.
Well, and the big piece here that I think is so important is when you look at it this way, we are not placing blame on anybody. It's not just about AI detection, but when you look at what's visible, what's assumed, and what's missing, and when you have that conversation with a teacher, it's not an attack. It's not saying your assignment is bad, right? It's truly just a question, because it might be fabulous. You might easily be able to answer all these questions and say nothing is missing, the thinking is visible, and that's amazing, right? So what we're talking about here is opening conversation and making sure that whatever your policy is, whatever your goal is, that the implementation is actually happening. So if you can go ahead and, go ahead, Megan.
One thing I love about this too is it's meeting the staff where they're at. So it can be any assignment, any moment, any conversation. If you were to say VAM in your head as an educator and you were able to, okay, what's visible for me? What am I assuming? And what do I think is missing so that I can make sure that if I'm giving this assignment a grade, that I feel confident that a student has learned. That's our goal as educators. And so to me, what's super important is it's not something that you have to change the whole thinking. It's a very simple checks and balance process where when a teacher is not sure if a student used AI, maybe they assume that 100% AI use is there, right, with the assignment. Let's do it this way, which is what a lot of teachers are wrestling with right now. You have an assignment where they're 100%, they're like, I'm assuming you've done 100% AI. So what's missing? The student thinking, and the teacher's able to go back and ask questions on what the student is thinking.
And I love
that's
this
exactly
because it
the
preserves
next
the
slide
relationship.
too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tori.
The one of the issues that I think that comes with confronting an assumed use of AI is the potential to really destroy a long-built, trustful relationship between students. I've seen it happen many times, way too many times at the university level, where that accusation comes at a cost. And what we're suggesting here is that, that's the accusation is not the point. Never the accuser, always the inquisitor, where you're inquiring about what the student was doing. Tell me about where you're going. And if there needs to be more evidence, then let's show it and let's give them time to do that. So in this particular slide here, we're looking at what's visible. So if you get inside the chat, put V and then put down what you felt was visible there. What did you feel was assumed? And then what did you think was missing that could be there that allowed you to reach a conclusion about what the student knew? And that might be a very complicated thing to ask for to do. When you're looking at it, and maybe you're looking at this for the first time with those eyes. And tell you what, let's do this. We're going to keep moving, but let's also have that into the background. And if you find something like what was visible, put that in there, and we'll come back to it in the chat and we'll talk about it.
So I put this up because I wanted you to see, one example. And I see this all the time in classrooms is, hey, students, I might want you to write a paragraph and explain the theme. I'm an English teacher. I did these things all the time. But now if you have students go back into that paragraph and say things like, I want you to mark the sentence that changed your thinking and explain why. Now we're taking that same assignment and we're elevating it to another level, right? Or, I want you to show me how you would revise this for a different audience. Oh, that was great. You turned that into me. Now I want you to rewrite that paragraph for a third grader who doesn't know what theme is, right? As we start to change the way the assignment is shifted, we have more evidence of the thinking that's behind it. So it's the same assignment. It's just clear evidence of thinking and proof of learning. And that's what we're focused on here.
And that's for teachers specifically, and for leaders holding that. We're not asking teachers to change all of their assignments or things that they've done with students for many, many years that have been successful. We have a lot of teachers who are veterans that have been excellent educators, and AI is coming in and they're trying to grapple through what they know has been done for a long time and done successfully, and making sure students are completing work. So these proof points that you're adding in are a teacher's able to use an assignment that they've loved for many, many years by adding something, a point, an opportunity for students to go back to an assignment and prove that they know what they're talking about.
All right, next slide, please. So on page 7 of your handout, you're going to see this artifact that we're going to leave you with. And this is that 10-day learning visibility routine. The idea here for teachers would be to choose one assignment that's happening. We're not asking them to reinvent the wheel, to come up with something else. But look critically at that assignment. What is the gap? Where's that evidence that shows the learning? and then write one proof move. Again, spin it. And guess what? AI is fabulous at helping you do this. So as much as we're talking about AI detection, it's a great tool to bring AI in to say, you know what, AI, I always ask students to write a paragraph explaining the theme. I want to twist it so that it shows proof of learning. Can you help me out here? But when you do that and then you say, okay, I've tweaked this and now I'm going to pull some samples of student learning, that's where the magic happens for teachers when they start to see that shift and they start to understand that, again, we're not saying throw out your curriculum, you have to start all over again, or you have to battle this big, AI demon. That's not it at all. It's how can I take something and just make a small adjustment in it so that it makes a difference. And if you can do that over 10 days, you will start to see not only a change in the product that you're getting, but I believe you're going to start to see a change in the conversations that are happening in the classroom with students. When we stop ignoring it, or when we start pushing detection and policy as the be all end all, but really focusing in on the purpose of school, which is learning, and how can we get there.
And the application of using AI and AI being here and having the comfort in knowing that as an educator, what you've had done for a long time can be easily adjusted with a small tweak like this, Laura, to add those proof points to your assignments so that you aren't reinventing a wheel that you know is excellent. It's making sure that in a time where people are very concerned about cognitive offload, very concerned, when we're dealing with urban youth who have, for many, many years, you know, have gotten through school, right? Just gone through school and gotten through school, making sure that that learning visibility has always been there for certain students. The ability for them to get through school, we always want to make sure that they are thinking and learning through school. AI has made that gap even wider and harder. And so many educators are very concerned that instead of thinking through an assignment, they're going to AI first. And as students are beginning to build these small habits of going to a very powerful tool before using their own very powerful tool. So when you begin adding these types of routines, everyday routines into assignments, you're forming small habits in the classroom that allow for students to realize that, hey, when I'm in Stephen's classroom, I know that he's going to ask me to think. So whether or not I use AI or not, these proof moves that are built into assignments will allow for students to understand that they have to also use their beautiful minds.
All right, next slide.
Okay, so next slide, please. Awesome.
There we go.
So this is something as a leader, to go back, please, Kim. So this idea of looking at your assignments through the lens of thinking, looking at AI through, okay, how can we make sure as an institution that our policy is supporting student thinking and learning, and how can we take this to actionable items? The beauty of this system, the beauty of the packet that we've given you is that as a leader, you can choose how you want to implement this. If you look at using this flexible routine where you have one proof move, right? Picking one thing, you might start with a one-on-one chat with a teacher who might have some big anxiety that's had a really hard time with AI, students completing assignments consistently with AI, having a one-on-one conversation with them to start thinking about how they can add proof moves to their assignments to ensure that learning visibility is the key. You might bring this to the department level, looking at maybe English and math being areas where you're seeing a lot of students use AI to create essays, for example, assignments where writing assignments, making sure that they're adding opportunities for students to question, to revise, as Laura said, using the proof move page 6 as a team, a department. You might also do this at the whole school during a staff meeting, where you're looking at doing a roundtable, where you're having teams look at different examples of lessons and how they can add visual thinking opportunities to something that's already happening on campus today. These are the types of opportunities that take the idea of policy, right? How are we protecting our students? But focusing it on the work that really, really matters, making sure you're taking the portions of your policy and focusing it on the actual student learning and giving your teachers tangible ways and leaders tangible ways to implement this tomorrow, not having to wait a really long time, but the power and the flexibility of this type of work, as simple as it is to do one proof move, the power of a leader to have these conversations, whether one-on-one, small team, or whole room, begins to transform the expectation where a teacher might have felt a little deflated or frustrated because they've done this for a long time and they want their students to continue to shine. We'll have that one little piece, that one little tool that can get them back into excitement, having students revisit their work. So if they're using AI, they got to learn to think with it. So these proof moves are also allowing for teachers to understand that AI is here and helping them engage in the process while this large tool is impacting it significantly.
Next slide.
All right. Tori, I'm going to have you fill in for Colin here.
Yeah, my good friend and colleague Colin Cooper has explained this idea to me in many ways and across the years. And he was saying that, if policies require heroics, it's not going to scale across the organization. And this came into a specific kind of conversation where I had built products, and he and I had talked about, the fact that how could it be implemented across, let's say even a 12th grade, 11th grade chemistry classroom. And he goes, well, if what you're doing is going to require an incredible amount of time and effort, it's just not going to resonate with people. And so good ideas only scale when they're clear, they're easily repeatable, and they're not dependent on one heroic effort, because it's just not going to scale. And I think that we can all think of people in organizations that were like that. They had this sort of heroic effort because they're in a place in their life where they could actually do that, but it's not practical. So we start manually, we learn what matters, and we build on the routine that proves it can deliver what you need. And that's kind of why we're starting here with just one thing, because that's doable. But what if we were in a position where we wanted to ask it to do something, that one thing, and a lot more frequently? Would that be plausible? Next slide.
Yeah. So scaling this idea can't, your policy can't rely on the high quality heroic teachers on your campus. It needs to be relied on every person following the policies. These one proof moves are tangible ways to support everyone in being successful. With any policy, you need focus. So looking at your AI policy, some of them are, I think I've seen policies as long as 40, 50 pages, right? And they're being implemented into systems, and leaders are looking at, okay, what's my first step? Right? So focusing, you cannot chase every single AI problem in your policy day one. You need to look at the things that, and you need to look at the things that you can do. Routine. Make sure that with your AI policy, what you choose to implement has to work and has to be repeatable. So we gave you an example of direct impact on students today, proof move, right? Can you work it? Can it be repeatable across the sector and all across the sector with ease? Evidence. We talked a lot about that in the chat. You might have evidence at the board level. You might have evidence at the student level. What is your evidence that your focus, your routine is working? And accountability is actually proving that point. So when you plan all of these pieces together, this is how you take a large 40-page policy. I've even seen longer. Pick an area that you believe in your environment you can tackle first. Create the routine, the evidence, and then the accountability, and make sure that it's scalable. It's not relying on one or two people in your organization to find success. And it really is about those atomic habits, those little things that you can do every day to improve the implementation of your policy. Those of you who are really interested in coherence, really we're talking about coherence of the system around policy. And this is some great resources in my career. These are some experts that I believe are phenomenal at supporting educators in looking at coherence. My favorite, Dr. Tom Paisant from the Boston School District, exceptional because his work was actually done in the field, and all of his frameworks were proven through the Boston Unified School District, urban leadership, really about sustained focus and really working to define from policy to practice. And a policy is only as good as implementation. So today we are so excited to have you here to look at how you could take a small bite of the apple. Our focus is taking your policy and obviously really looking at improving student output and thinking as a result, knowing that one of the larger problems with artificial intelligence is that it's hard to see thinking. And that has been around for a very long time. Project Zero has been around since the 1960s, so the research on this has been significant. But those of you that are love reading, love research, I strongly recommend you diving into these as you're looking at and are here because you're looking at coherence from your policy to practical implementation. These are wonderful resources for you to dive into. But would love to know if you looked at your policy, some of you have them right now. If you don't, we can learn from those that are. Where are you at? Have you guys picked focus or routine, evidence or accountability? Any one of those phases? Where are you at right now at your policy implementation if you were to put it in one of those buckets?
One of the items here that I think Colin has made pretty clear in the conversations he's had with me about the work that goes on at Illuminate XR. And IXR asked these questions deeply, profoundly, and then spent a lot of time and effort to putting together a system called Nexus that does all of these things. And the glorious part about it is that the multi-layered AI design helps do a heroic task, but uniformly for every student. And it does all of the things that we were talking about. And it allows the teacher to take a step back and then see the results of that heroic task that Nexus had stepped in and done. And I think that as we talk a lot about how this has been, the ideas behind it and how we can do it on our own. I find that the research and implementation behind the Nexus product really does a phenomenal job of doing the things we just talked about, but doing it at a heroic level for everybody.
So it is exciting. But for today, we're really focusing on this team and their policies. Anybody who's interested in learning more about the work that we're doing at IXR, we're very much into visible thinking, making sure during the AI time that we are focusing on students' ability to think and learn. And as we know, that's the whole goal of education. We're honored to have you. Would love to take some questions. At this point, Cam, can you unmute all of our wonderful guests so they have an opportunity to ask questions? We have some great leaders on this call who have been deeply involved with artificial intelligence joining us today. Would love to hear your questions and letting us. Laura and Tori, thank you so much for your awesome presentation with us today, but love to hear from everybody. If you have any questions for the team, thoughts on today, we'd love to discuss.